All right, welcome back to Real Ag Radio here on this Thursday. It is, of course, the Farmer Rapid Fire brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. And with us from Pioneer Seeds Canada, we've got Greg Stops. How are you, Greg?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me back on, Lyndsey.
Yeah, okay. So it's been a little while since we spoke. What's happening in your end of Ontario? Because oh my gosh, it's a bit crazy out this way.
Well, I think wintertime is always a little bit crazy in the ag world, right? I mean, it's been packed full of meetings. There's lots of new stuff kind of going on, it seems. Lots of interest as growers at this time of year are pretty engaged. They're coming back from their vacations and they're refreshed and they're ready to go. Got guys jumping into shops to do some last minute work on planter equipment and getting excited for the season. So it's a busy, hectic time of year, that's for sure.
Now, I think this, mild weather definitely, I think, is encouraging maybe some of that work in the shop and gets us itching a little bit to get going. But it's early days yet. What conversations are you having in sort of that getting going phase of what questions are top of mind for your growers?
Well, I think the weather question is a big one, right? Like, what's this year going to be like? It's we can't shy away from the fact that some are starting to draw comparisons on how this winter has gone to how winter went in 2012, let's say,
Mhm.
where we saw really early planting and then saw some drought conditions late in the year. And we're not at a point where we can predict those kinds of things yet. But I'd say the winter we've had has been a really mild one. There's not a lot of ice coverage out on the Great Lakes right now, so we are looking at potentially an early spring, and we need to be prepared for that, right? So in terms
Mhm.
of the growers who are starting to get a little itchy, that itch isn't maybe a bad thing if it's encouraging them to prepare, right?
Mhm.
If it's getting them to pull that planter into the shop a couple weeks early to look things over, that's never a bad thing, right? If
Yeah.
they're going to do some of those modifications, let's get them done now, and let's make sure that you are set to go, whether that's planting your corn in April or if that's back to normal planting in May, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't hurt to be prepared. So I don't mind a little bit of the itch at this point. No one's really ramming and ready to go, although we are starting to get a few of those questions maybe on wheat, right?
Mm.
As
Mhm.
wheat starts to kind of come out of dormancy, when's the right time to start going? Lots of conversations out there right now about putting red clover down, and when it's appropriate for that. And all of those things are pretty normal this time of year for us. And I would just always caution, don't get too excited, too rammy. Make sure your
Mhm.
soil's fit if you're ever going to go on any of those fields.
No, and I mean it's a good point in that for some things like frost eating clover and those
Yep,
like it is an early season job to do. So that's maybe not well
absolutely.
ahead. It is the yes, more the hey, can I actually put, corner beans in mid-April? That's more the conversation that makes us go, whoa, 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 whoa. But you are not the first person to mention the 2012 thing in the last little while, and as you said, we cannot predict that for sure. But it was a very dry year. What about you know soil moisture conditions going into the winter? I mean, last fall was a tough one for a lot of farmers. Will an early spring help us out on that side if it is on the dry side?
Um, the weather conditions that allow for early planting, I think, don't hurt. Um, I would be more concerned about overall where that soil moisture is if we don't get rejuvenation of that and some rains through the spring months, especially in May and June. Last year, we had really dry conditions end of May through early June. And if we see that repeat itself on top of an already low water or water holding capacity or on top of water resources that haven't fully rejuvenated through this winter because of lack of snowfall, and because of some of the melts that we've seen that have opened up fields and exposed them to some of that drying out and that drying effect, then we are going to potentially be in a little bit of danger of some of that drought stress. So it's we're too early to tell yet. I'm not
Yeah,
stressed at this point in
good.
time. Anytime we get a year that presents an opportunity for early planting, you got to look at the positive too, because early planting can significantly help us increase yield potential, whether
Mhm.
that's corn or beans. It does provide us some opportunity. You got to weigh the risks too, because we're never fully free of frost-free days. But
Hmm.
I mean, we got to look towards some of the positives and not just be looking towards, the negatives and reliving years where we had failures. We can't control those at this point, and we can't foresee that everything's going to play out the exact same way.
For sure. Um, and if it is a very dry year, be interesting to do a comparison 12 years different on practices. So that's a conversation we may not get to have, but that's fine. So keeping to the positive though, lots of exciting things to look forward to this year. What are you hearing from your growers on what they're excited to try for 2024?
Well, there's lots of new things coming for sure. I think there's a number of new things coming in the technology world that you'll see coming out there, right? RNAi technology in corn is really exciting. That's a hot topic kind of in my area where I have been dealing with, and Huron, Perth County, in some of the heavy corn on corn areas for livestock, have been dealing with corn rootworm pressure. So those new technologies that are coming to the table, with the Vorseed products from Pioneer, but RNAi technology in general, are really exciting in terms of another tool in the toolbox for growers. So there's some excitement around those. There's always excitement around some of the moves that the industry is making with herbicide tolerance in beans. We're excited as we kind of continue developing our enlist lineup. And then there's excitement around biologicals. There's a lot of talk about biologicals in the industry in general. Growers are keen to kind of try stuff, and I encourage that very much. It's always good to take some of those things and prove them on your farm, figure out where the ROI is, and whether or not they're a fit in terms of taking your management practices to the next level to unleash more yield potential or better performance, or even fix some logistical things on your farm, right?
Hmm. That is a very good list. That's exciting. So let's maybe leave it
Yeah,
there
it's
because then
an
we can end
exciting
on a high
year.
note. It
Yeah,
always is.
absolutely. I think
Yeah.
there's there's a lot to look forward to in 2024 for sure. So
Absolutely. All right, Greg, thanks so much for joining me on the show today. And we'll touch base again soon, maybe a little closer to planting time, and we'll see if we're still going to be early.
that would be fantastic. Thanks for having me on, Lyndsey. It's been my pleasure.